I'm early Kathy.
You're an early Kathy?
I'm an early Kathy.
Boy, are accountants great people. We should evolve our work from compliance to advisory.
I don't know what that means. I could change my tires, but I could also poke myself in the eye with a wrench.
Oh, wow. Gosh, wrap your head. Accountants develop an addiction to forecasting, and live plan for accountants.
Why would I use live plan? What's the value for that?
I guess you can't develop an addiction to something that you haven't tried, so do it. It's so easy, liveplan.com.
Maybe people who are listening to this aren't going to go on the website. Not a sponsor, could be.
I've never met an industry that is more caring about their customers than the accounting industry. I think accountants are burdened with a lot of tools.
Why don't you tell us the live plan method?
It's a business process that builds bundles that you sell your clients.
I don't believe this.
I'm Kathy Gregory. I'm not an accountant by trade. I don't run my own business. I'm an employee of Palo Alto Software.
So you don't come from the accounting world. What did you think of accountants? Public accountants. What do accountants do? Traditional CPA firms, they normally did the bookkeeping, which was basically for the tax return. What do you think accounting firms are doing wrong? How do we service our clients the best? How to go from that bookkeeping role to do the advisory work? Basically, we don't know how to monetize this. We don't know the processes.
Wow, all the accountants are saying we need to do advisory. And that was the word, advisory. And you get a little sick of hearing it.
Wait, what's advisory?
Yeah, I'm going to do advisory, but I don't really know what that means. Kathy, let me ask you, why do you not have a personal accountant? We've done a very bad job. We've commoditized ourselves. Taxes are complex. You just go online and magically something happens.
This live plan method is what really got me during COVID. I think this was my COVID thing, was live plan, among other things.
That's why the kismet of me finding Palo Alto and them finding me, they were exploring the accounting industry and knew that accountants needed to do business advisory and knew that live plan is perfect for that. But how do you translate that to them?
Nice to meet you, Kathy.
Did you write an intro?
Nice to meet you.
Did I write an intro now?
Good, because I did. Okay.
I can't read, so.
Hello and welcome. This show is meant to inspire something. Listen to us question the industry norms. I'm not wearing my glasses and I can't read. It's too far. And ask unanswerable questions with awesome people in this space. We are the change agents in an industry fraught with money and inertia. Let's begin. The Sons of CPAs.
Kathy, welcome to the Sons of CPAs podcast. Glad to have you. So why don't you give us a little of your background, and then I have some questions.
So I've spent, almost 30 years, let's say 25.
You look like you're 30, so I don't believe this.
No, I'm not. I'll be 50 this year. Actually.
Oh, that's good. You can contribute more to your 401k.
Yeah, that's true. I have done one form of financial forecasting and modeling since the beginning of my career out of college. It's taken different forms. I've worked for different types of companies. Along the way, I was also able to experience business process design. I worked for an engineering company that had to be ISO 9000 certified. Kind of was able, when I had my daughter, to take, 6 years off entirely. I was very lucky. When it was time to go back to work, I looked up and said, wow, the last time I was working for this company that had offices all around the nation, I was traveling. I wasn't working in Eugene, Oregon, in my hometown. What should I do now? And so I updated my resume. I reached out to a lot of people that I knew, and one of them was the CEO of Palo Alto Software, who I knew, but I didn't really know what they did. She was the CEO there.
Did you know her from soccer practice?
Yep.
Okay.
Our kids went to the same elementary school. And Palo Alto Software had a need for exploring the accounting industry. And I had this background of doing financial forecasting, modeling, business process design. I had worked alongside accounting departments and accountants who were doing accounting for the business, but not necessarily management reporting. And so I would pull data out of whatever systems they were using. Back then, the business I worked at was using Oracle Finance and applications. So pulling data out of Oracle, massaging it, doing modeling and doing forecasting, and providing reports to management to make management decisions. So that was the breadth of my expertise, especially I think 7 years ago when it was a new idea to be doing forecasting or doing strategic planning, doing management reporting. It was a little bit new.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so I just said, great, I would love to do that. I haven't had at that time, any experience in public accounting, didn't know what the problems that public accountants face, had no idea. So I started going to conferences and just listening. I did a lot of listening and a lot of asking questions, but mostly listening to the problems that accountants had. And
you did a lot of listening. I know you just said it 3 times.
Yeah, what I took away from after just attending conferences for probably at least a year and a half, if not 2 years straight, so 2 seasons of conferences, was
What years was this?
in 2016. So 2016 is when I started, and it was realizing, wow, all the accountants are saying we need to do advisory, and that was the word, advisory. And you get a little sick of hearing it, the word. It gets tired.
Oh, it's the A word now.
God.
We're not allowed to say it on this podcast.
What I knew, though, is that the work of providing management reporting is crucial. There's no way a small business owner can make smart decisions unless they have some type of management reporting and some type of forecasting to be able to understand what is their profitability in the next 3, 6, 9, 12, really 18 to 24 months. What is it? What is it going to be? And what will their cash position be? And then the other items too that matter, the other financial items. So that work is important. Okay, all the accountants are saying they need to do advisory. They know there's an opportunity there. And so what would our version, what would LivePlan's version of advisory be if they were using the product? Because it's such a wide scope. It's everything from ideation and strategic planning all the way through to management reporting. So how can accountants take this and do the work that I knew was super important, but how could they monetize it?
It's a very linear way of thinking. So that's where they put advisory. Wait, what's advisory? You know?
Well, and it can be a lot of things. That's what I took away from the learning. We should evolve our work from compliance to advisory. The issue then becomes there's lots of different versions of that. And then using my background of business process design to say, all right, let's design a process that is scalable and has basically profit baked into it that accountants can use to learn, scale their practices, and then train their employees. So then I set about to build that. And that's the LivePlan method for strategic advising. And it's a business process. And then we just started layering the other tools that they needed, the marketing elements and everything that you would need to train your employees and deliver.
I want Ackerman to ask his questions because I think his mind is turning now. As a CPA firm, very traditionally speaking.
Okay, so you don't come from the accounting world. What was your, before you got in, what did you think of accountants? Public accountants.
People, you mean, or the role as the profession?
Not as people. I don't want to know that. Just,
I didn't have any.
What did you like? I think this is a struggle for the public as a whole. What do accountants do?
Yeah, honestly, when I first started this role, I didn't understand. I didn't understand the work. I knew there was tax work, but I knew that was tax and that was its own thing. I certainly knew what auditing was because the company I worked for was a public company and the auditors came to us. So it was Arthur Anderson.
Those are the people that you put them in a really dark room and never talk with them.
And when you're the business and especially when you're not the board, when you're just the worker who has to provide the auditor the information, you put them in the worst room because you just want them to leave.
There's a window there that you tape it up.
But you just get them everything they want and you don't waste time because the quicker you can get them the information, the quicker they'll do their work and the quicker they'll leave, was my experience.
Explains the rooms that I got put in when I was auditing. I had an ice machine open next to me. It was dripping near my feet. I thought it was just a hot day. Yeah.
That's hilarious. Anyway, that's my limited version of that. But yeah, coming in beyond that, I really thought that most outsourced accounting was doing the full role of management accounting already. I assumed that was happening. And what I've learned over those 6 years, starting in 2016, is not really.
So define what management accounting is.
To me, it means outsourced CFO and controllership, doing all the accounting and then providing the management reporting and sitting down with the owner operator to make management decisions that help that owner grow their business, and not just simply doing the accounting for tax purposes or wrapping it up for tax purposes or stopping at the reporting, but actually having the management conversation that is pretty strategic. and
Yeah.
helping them make decisions about their business.
So traditional CPA firms, they normally did the bookkeeping, which was basically, like you said, made sure that they have something for the tax return. So you can do the tax return. No real like taking those numbers and making it meaningful for the owner. So it sounds like LivePlan has figured out how to become that outsourced CFO. So I guess what if you're a CPA firm and you're doing this bookkeeping already. So maybe you're doing the reconciliations monthly and the tax return, but you want to provide that next level of service. So I'm guessing this is where LivePlan comes in. But tell us, like, for an accounting firm,
If you're a firm and you're scared of the word advisory, but you want to do something more, or you want to
I
help.
don't think
clients.
anyone's scared of the word advisory. They don't know how to go from that bookkeeping role to how do I get. I think they're worried about how do I get my clients to pay me more to do the advisory work.
Great.
That's where I think they are.
I completely agree.
They know how to do it. They just don't know how to sell themselves to do it.
Well, or how to monetize it. That comes first.
Yeah.
You have to know how to monetize it first. And then from there, you have to have a product that represents that and know what that product is and know what the deliverables are of that product. And then once you know that, selling it is a piece of cake because you've got a thing to point to. But when you don't have those things, then it's just trust me, or I'm going to charge you more to do smart things, and it just becomes squishy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to do advisory, but I don't really know what that means. I'm going to advise you.
I think that was one of the biggest realizations for me coming from working in engineering companies, that to me, there's a lot of similarity between what goes on in an engineering organization and what goes on in an accounting.
Accountants hate engineers.
Yeah, well, that makes sense.
Because the engineers, like, they would go over every line of a tax return and they want to know like why everything works. But taxes aren't like, they're not rational. That's where the disconnect is. They're like, why is it like this? I'm like, well, some 79-year-old senator who's an idiot wrote it. That's the answer.
Well, the similarity I mean is that you're both types of organizations are effectively service-based organizations. They're effectively doing service-based.
No, there's a lot of similarities.
There's a lot, but my experience anyway on the engineering side is they are masters at productizing what they do. They might do service-based work all day long. They might even do one-off work for clients. They might do work on spec all the time, but they're masters at saying, ooh, I see a similarity in what I'm doing. I'm going to productize it. I'm going to make a product. Now it's easier for them because they're building things that are usually physically, you can touch them. They're building something usually. But you know what? It's not that different. On the accounting side, you're producing stuff, and it's mostly labor is what goes into it, but it doesn't matter. It's still, in the end, you can create products. And so once you can get yourself to something that in the advisory space is a product, now you can communicate about that product, you can market it, you can talk about it, you can almost touch it. And then you have something that can be called advisory. So in our case, it's strategic advising. It is the financial forecasting that goes behind it. It's taking the strategic plan that a small business owner has in their head, usually, getting it out of their head, getting it down on paper or in a product, and then building a financial plan that represents a model that represents that, and then helping them manage to that model, precisely manage that model.
Since 2016, I have been trying to monetize monthly meetings. That's all I could really call it. It was advisory, and there was no real way to sell that. You couldn't just say you get a monthly meeting with me, or with, especially that backfired whenever I said, oh yeah, you get to meet with me every month, but here's the person you're going to work with. Clients didn't really like that either. I couldn't sell that. Before I found LivePlan, I had this 6-page document I had put together, and then I'm going through the LivePlan method, and I saw everything that you guys had created. And I was in awe. I was just so relieved. Are
you saying that you created LivePlan?
No,
I
did.
Your own,
no, I'm saying that the right people.
And they stole it from you?
No, absolutely not. I think the right people.
Kathy, we have a lawsuit. Maybe people who are listening to this aren't going to go on the website. Why don't you tell us the LivePlan method?
It's a business process that builds bundles that you then sell your clients. So anytime you're wanting to do a service offering, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be advisory. It can be anything, but in our case it is. So even if you can sell something, you have to have a way to produce and deliver that thing. So you have to have some type of business process for that. Call it a checklist, call it a task list, call it your workflow, but it's a business process. And when you mindfully build a business process, there are ways to build a business process to effectively build margin into the work you do. So you can make a task list for anything. You can say, I want to do these things today. Here's my task list to produce these 5 things. That's just a list. But if you're saying, I want to deliver something and I need that product to be, first of all, good, and then I need to make money delivering that product. Now I need my task list to be efficient, and I need to get out the tasks in the list that don't contribute to profit, that are effectively inefficient. So that's what we did, is set about to build a process that cuts out the waste and has you doing just the amount of things in order to bring value to a customer that they will pay for. And the list of things evolves over time. There's an upfront amount of work that you do in the first month that gets you to a beginning forecast. And then there are things you do in the ongoing months that let you evolve that relationship. Because this work, this advisory work we're talking about, strategic advising, these engagements should be 3, 4, 5, 10 years. These are long-term engagements. So you have to not only get going with the customer in a way that will bring you profit up front, but you have to grow that relationship over time. So the business process dictates that and says, do these things in month 1, do these next things in month 2. So that's part of it. Layered across the other way are bundles that you're going to do X amount of tasks. And by doing X amount of tasks, you're going to produce value-based items that generate bundles that you can sell. And those bundles are your products. That's your product. We label those products. That's a lot of words. And then in addition, that's the foundation. But in addition to that is a whole bunch of other resources that you use to deliver. So there's sales emails in the beginning that you can use to generate interest, to lead to a sale. There are emails that we've built once you've sold and are working with the client that help you deliver.
It gets really hyper-focused. Like every other detail that an accountant might want, and I'll let everybody in on a secret. I didn't want all of the time stuff until I actually saw it. And then I'm like, wow, I want people to track their time. Now, yeah, and then I've worked my way backwards to say, I think we're going to track time again. Everybody in the world tracks time except for us 2 jokers. And I effectively today, after our EOS quarterly, boom, the gavel is down. We are tracking time.
What Scott's talking about there is to say another piece of the resource is capacity planning and resource allocation. So time should not be tracked in order to set prices. Prices are established by what the market will bear and what you can charge. But you do have to know what your profitability might be, and you have to know what your capacity is. So think about it like a bill of material. I'm developing this product. My product is the bundle I'm selling. What do I need in order to produce that thing? And mostly it's labor. In this case, it's labor and it's some software. And the labor comes from people. And so how many do I need? And what do I need to produce that? And what would be too many? What would be too few? And what are my margins on that? And that's why people track time, because you have to know what your capacity is. And you have to know when you need to hire or when you need to train somebody. It's all about that. So there is a resource that we built in the program for folks who need to address capacity, who have more than just 1 or 5 employees that have a staff and need to decide who does what work and what capacity they have. And I'm not even advocating that people track their time forever. What I'm saying is there is an upfront bit of work to just look at what your capacity is and say, I've got X staff and they work X amount of time. So what can I produce with my staff? What even do we have time to produce?
We say the word team here.
You can say staff. Kathy, what do you think accounting firms are doing wrong? There's a lot of things.
He's probably doing everything you think. No, he's doing a lot of things the right way.
I'm not keeping track of time, so that's one bad thing.
I'll be honest, I'm worthless. Being held accountable for that.
First of all, you're not worthless.
Not yet.
The resource that this idea of capacity planning and resource allocation is not to say that you have to track your time forever. At least I'm not saying that. I am saying, though, you ought to look at.
It's okay. We're the only firm in the country that doesn't keep track of time. It sounds like you're designing a product to create changes in a firm to produce higher value products. What are we doing wrong that you're seeing?
Boy, what I see happening a lot, because I think accountants are burdened with a lot of tools to be able to do your work. So a lot of software tools out there. And it's tempting to decide what work to do or what services to offer based on what tools are out there that might be good at doing things. And that's logical. If you
That's interesting.
But it's not a useful way to, you can waste a lot of time doing that. Instead, what's good is to say, these are the things I want to offer my clients. And how can I productize those things? How can I call those things a product? Then what are the resources that I need in order to deliver those things? Your primary resource is people. The other resource is software tools. What functionality do I need to find to build my product instead of chasing software products around and just offering services based on what they do? And I do see that. And I think it's because there's so much out there to explore. There's so many options. And it feels like there's a new something every.
Sounds like a Reading Rainbow commercial. There's so much out there to explore.
It's just, there really are. And I'm not saying that accounting firms are doing that wrong, but I do see that a lot. And it must be frustrating. It must feel very frustrating to just feel like you're constantly having to explore new things.
It is. It's exhausting. I'm done exploring new things at the firm. I'm not even kidding.
Scott's had a big regression.
A regression? I think so. Maybe.
You always have to continue moving forward.
You think so?
Well, I would love to ask you that, but what do you think is wrong with the accounting firm? Do you think there's anything wrong? I don't know that I think there's anything necessarily wrong. I think people are just trying to navigate the new normal and move.
Yeah, I think that's a poor question. I think, which, in your opinion, do you think firms should do differently?
I think that's a great question, Kathy. It's like the number one thing is, how do we service our clients the best?
Yeah.
And that should be the number one focus. And I think we've literally designed the accounting firm to do the opposite of that on a lot of our processes. And if we looked, and it's like your point, like, how can we do things faster and more efficient? But like, is that better for the client? Is losing all client interaction to do a tax return good for the client? Is sending them monthly management reports via email and never talking with them good for the client? I don't think so. So I think just what you basically, in another way, what you said is like, how do we service the client better? And then if that's our guiding principle, then how do we build our products and services to service that client better? Most firms are going completely opposite of that. They're trying to commoditize themselves and do things as quickly as possible and send stuff, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. A
lot of firms are attaching themselves to the anchor when they should be attaching themselves to the sail, right? I think that's essentially it.
But I think we kind of talking about, I want to do advisory, I want to do this. But it's like, how do I service the client the best? That's the best thing you can do. And for everyone, that's a little different.
Well, don't leave that off, though, that you definitely want to make money first and then service the client.
No, I think you service the client and then you make the money. Like, your why can't be, I want to make money. It has to be, I want to service the client the best.
I will argue that it's about money until it's not. You still have to make money, and you still have to make it a system that's
sure, you have a book back
profit.
There, probably near Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
And it's why. I'm sure you have it back there.
Yeah.
I think the one will follow. And if you are servicing your clients and helping them, here's what I know to be true. And I've learned this, well, I learned it over the years, but especially working at Palo Alto Software, because we have such connection with small businesses directly. We survey our small business clients every year, take their pulse. We also work with them daily. I think we know quite a bit about what small business owners want and need, and what they want is help understanding the decisions they have to make in their business to reach their goals. They don't, and it's way more than tax planning. They may come to you because they need a tax return, but that's because they have to have it. What they want is help understanding what their enterprise value is today and what their enterprise value could be in the future. That's what they really want. And whether or not they tell you when they engage you, their accountant, that's what they're after, that's what they want, and that's what they expect. And they don't always have the words for asking.
They don't know how to tell you it is not about money. Most people can't get past the fact that they don't even realize why they're motivated for their family or even for their team. Yes, I agree with Simon Sinek. Find your why. I totally get that for me personally, but I think a lot of other people, once they see past the money part, then it becomes very meaningful. And then they could clear the hedges and say, okay, this is what the numbers mean. When they take the dollar signs away sometimes and they see whatever they really truly want out of it. And I think a lot of live plan method training teaches the team that too, because a lot of them can't get past it. And they're used to working with just the numbers. And now they get to see 3-dimensionally, here's people behind it, and here's motivations, and here's some sparks of innovation and fun stuff beyond just the numbers and just the money. I get it. I don't think it's just about money, but it's about money for most people until it's not, right?
It certainly is. A small business owner wants to be profitable. Usually it's a combination of some trade that they either inherited or that they love, that they built themselves, and being profitable, for sure.
Yeah. Sorry, I
So-
get so intense about the money thing because I think a lot of people don't want to talk about it.
You have to make money, but I think if your goal is just to make money, that's how you burn yourself out. Like in 3 years, you just try to make money. If you try to design something that will, because if you're trying to make all this money up front, then you're cutting corners and you're not building your firm the right way. Kathy, question on, I like how you survey all your customers. What are some of the questions that you ask your customers every year?
Yeah. So every year we take their confidence level. Every year we ask them what their biggest problems are. And every year we ask them what kind of help they want out of an advisor. And we do use the word advisor because we're trying to align words. And we also want to leave it a little open-ended. And then what do they take away when we say advisor? So we don't say accountant. My point. We say advisor. And we offer them a range of things from big and broad, like business model update is the biggest, broadest thing, down to like budgeting, then accounting, cash flow management. It starts to get more granular. Every year we ask them. And every year, including last year, during the COVID year, so we survey in the fall, in late September, October is when we send it out. Then we take the winter through the holidays to analyze the data. We usually then have it available in about February. Even last year, during the COVID year, when we asked them, what do you want from an advisor? It wasn't cash flow management, did not make the top of the list. It was high, but the top of the list was business model updates. Second was forecasting. Third was cash flow management. And then last was loan eligibility. These small business owners, the other thing they tell us year after year is that they want to do these things correctly, and they feel not only a responsibility to their small businesses, but a responsibility to their employees to do it right. And I say it because what they mean is to manage their business right. There's this enormous responsibility that they feel to get it right. And they worry about not getting it right. And they want an advisor to help them get it right. And so when they outsource their work and they hire that accountant, and they may come to you for a tax return, but what they're wanting is a person in their corner to help them and to collaborate and to guide them. They really can almost be their own best CFO if you get the information out of them and imbue them with your knowledge and help translate the numbers to them and then get out of them the information in their head. The two of you work as such a great team, but that's what they need.
Yeah, I think CPAs are always ranked as like the most trusted advisor when they do these surveys. Like, I think that most of them have these relationships with the clients. It's just they're not good at monetizing it, doing the sell and but they're already doing all this stuff. But like you said, they don't have a process and a product. Like the first person that the client calls when something happens in the business is financials, normally their CPA. If it isn't, then they're probably not doing a good job. But
if they call their lawyer first, then they're definitely doing something wrong.
Well, sometimes the lawyer it's the accountant and the lawyer. So it sounds like we're all dancing around it, but basically we don't know how to monetize this. We don't know the processes, and you guys have created a process to help accounting firms, delegate some of this work to the lower staff and train them on how to do this so that the main CPA doesn't have to do it all.
That's right.
I'll warn anybody that thinks they know how to price this. They probably don't know how to price this. They definitely need some help. But
well, and that's what I learned in doing so much listening. I felt bad for the accounting industry almost as a whole. It's gosh, you're all trying to wrap your head. Everyone wants to do more. Accountants, boy, are accountants great people. Like
Love doing more.
I've never met. Oh my gosh, I've never
because they're
met,
already so used to putting so many hours in, and they're tired. They want to get paid. They want to make some money.
Yeah, I've never met an industry that is more caring about their customers than the accounting industry, ever, never, or that will help each other more. It's really humbling. And I walked away, I remember from those first 2 years of accounting conferences thinking, God, I feel bad for these people because they don't have the means necessarily to monetize this work that A, they'd be great at, and B, they want to do, that they can't get paid to do it because it's not in their DNA necessarily. And so it's a passion project, honestly, to build this thing that hopefully will help accountants monetize this
Did
work.
it turn into a passion project? Is Sabrina the brainchild of you falling in love with accountants? I think she's awesome.
Well, Sabrina, yeah. I mean, yeah, so I would go. Sabrina had already been going to the shows, and Palo Alto Software's stance back then was, well, LivePlan will do this work. Why wouldn't they want to do this business planning work, this work? And I think it had to come to a realization of course they will. They just don't know how to monetize it. And so let's teach that. Let's focus on that, and everything else will come along. So we just set out to build the business process first. That's always the first thing. Anytime you are trying to build a product out of a service, anytime you're trying to evolve a service to a product, you got to have the business process that underlies everything. It's not rocket science, but you have to start there. So we built that first and then started adding the other things. Then I basically cornered Mark Wickersham at the next season.
He seems like he's got the impression of being a tall British man.
He is the best.
Yeah, and he was teaching value pricing, and I thought, this is great. We need to come up with a value-based pricing version of this. Let's do this. Because we built packages right away and put like suggested fixed prices on them. But the value-based thing was just another layer. He took all my boring words and just evolved them to be better.
Not a sponsor, could be.
I would love to have him on one day. That's just an evolution of Ron Baker's. Even though he's British and Ron Baker's from America, I just feel like I can, not that I can't identify with Ron Baker. I think he's awesome, but I think Mark Wickersham is like speaking more my language. And I think Ron Baker's more of like the professor, and Mark Wickersham's like the older brother, or like somebody that's more like telling you he took this class, or you should take this class too, and he translates it almost. I don't know.
He was great to work with, and just made everything really practical. And he has the tools too in his consulting program. So it's good to work with. And then we started working with other app partners. So from there, we just grew to say there's other things this shakes hands with. If you're using a business process, for instance, then maybe you're using workflow. So then Carbon was the first group we worked with to say,
not a sponsor, could be.
Hey, Carbon, we've got a business process. Would you like to represent that process in your app? And indeed they did. So Ian and I did that together. So right now you can find the LivePlan method in Carbon. And then from there,
Ian's our guest next week too. So that segues perfectly.
He's an engineer, I think mechanical engineer is his background. And meeting him at a conference, we just talked about our past. And then I realized he was an engineer. So of course I went down that path with him, and he has the same background in process, and it obviously shines in Carbon. Yeah. It was fun. And then Arrow and Jetpack, they're great too. David Costello and then the team at Arrow too. And then Practice Ignition came along, because once we had our bundles, it was like, ooh, now we need to team up with Practice Ignition and get those bundles. Ignition.
Gotta get that money. Kathy, let me ask you, what's your relationship with your accountant?
With my account, my personal accountant?
Yeah. What's your relationship like?
I do not have a personal accountant.
Oh, why do you not have a personal accountant?
My husband and I both feel like we can handle it. And so between us, he does our taxes and I'm involved, and we.
Okay, this is super interesting. So you're trying to, I'm very intrigued by this, because there's a lot of people out there like you that you should probably, I'm guessing you make enough money where you probably could get some value from a CPA. Why have you not done that? What value I guess we're not selling you the value.
Well,
that's very true. You got a lot of correlation here. Kathy, you got on your feet.
I don't run my own business. I'm an employee of Palo Alto Software. So I don't have a business that needs CPA help. If you mean for my personal wealth or my personal monies, my husband and I manage that. If you would like to tell us, talk to us about what value you would bring that would be beyond that.
I was actually talking with my dad about this. I was like, how do we get these people, not necessarily you, but we've done a very bad job of like, we've commoditized ourselves. You think of doing your tax return as a commodity, as just like, we're going to do the tax return. But you don't see the value of if something happens throughout the year, you can contact us. We're there if something bad happens.
What's the worst that can happen during the year?
It's probably like, I've never been audited, I've never got tax notice, no big deal for me. Or what are they going to save me money? Is there value to this? I don't see it. I can just go on TurboTax and do it myself. So I think we've done a bad job of saying, hey, maybe meeting with a tax professional once a year. You can have a doctor, or you can just go on WebMD and diagnose yourself. It's the same, like professionalism. And a lot of people do that. My wife does that.
But you get sick and that's unpredictable. But people think their finances, if they're a W-2, are very predictable until they're not. Right. So if you're sick, you don't even know why you're sick. It could be a million different things. So you want a doctor that's focused on you to answer your question. Right. So what's a CPA going to do that's not predictable?
Her financials are good and she's got it under control and she doesn't need that financial doctor.
You have to introduce unpredictability to the sales process. She want to introduce unpredictability in her life that she would need a CPA in order for her to pay one, because people pay for predictability.
I don't think you have to sell unpredictability. I think it's selling, how can this $900 you pay me to do your tax return, that's not just the tax return, how can you get $900 worth of value on that? Same way, like, why would I use Live Plan? What's the value for that? I got to sell it to you. So we haven't done a good job of it, obviously, because you don't use a CPA to do your tax return. Do it yourself.
Yeah, for my you're talking about for my person, because I see a distinction. If I was,
it's a lot of people, like most accountants have thrown away an individual tax return, like yourself. They've been like, there's no value there. I'm not going to worry about. I'm just going to focus on businesses. But there's a lot of people out there that want a CPA to do their tax return as an individual because they see value in it. Whether they don't want to do it themselves, they don't trust themselves to do it. They want someone to give them advice on certain things. They want to know that they're there if something goes wrong. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of value that can be added.
I think you've almost convinced me that I need to find a CPA.
But taxes are complex. And we haven't, like, TurboTax has made it seem like it's not complex. You just go online and you just do some things and magically something happens. But that doesn't mean it's done.
I think it's more so that you need to have somebody else besides somebody that's close to it. I would prefer somebody else to do it so they can look at it from a different vantage point than me, because I'm stuck in my own thought process, my own world. So I think that's what you sell, is somebody looking at it from a different angle. I'm sure Kathy talks to a lot of the same people. So if you, an outsider, looked at it, you may find a different angle there.
Well, I think it's going to touch, there's lots of different reasons it's going to touch people a lot of different ways. That is one. Have a third party who's a professional do your tax return. I could change my tires, but I could also poke myself in the eye with a wrench.
That's true too.
Here's what I'll say about this. I might be totally, I'm going to evolve this, is what I think. Yeah. The taxes are one thing, but taxes alone, there's so much more. And it's the best foot in the door, I would think, with a small business owner in order to do strategic planning and financial forecasting for that small business owner. The person engaged in the taxes is the best person to do that. And if there's no way to monetize how to do that, then the opportunity can be missed. And that's a shame. If you can take that engagement that is for tax return and say, I can work with you all year, not just to be here to pick up the phone to answer whatever random call you have, but to actually take what's in your head for your business, your whole planning, and represent your business in terms of a roadmap. And I'm going to help you now look ahead. I'm going to help you look to the future. Not what was your profitability last year and how can you maximize.
Analogous that to your life, right? Make that analogous to your life and say, Ackerman will look at your taxes. For you.
And but your financial that's how you market for the next 10 years, and You
But
want to
you're marketing
retire
it
in
with
5
financial
years?
planning,
How do we
not
get
taxes.
you there?
Not doing your taxes, but planning your future, right? So you market that, plan your future, and we'll also do your taxes. And we'll
Yes.
be there all year.
There
We'll
we
be there
go.
all year if you have questions or if you need help
Kathy's
with the
going to be
future plan.
Kathy's getting the price submission right after this.
And really, taxes should just be part of it. Taxes are just what go on for, I don't know how long they take you, for whatever slice of the year that takes. But wouldn't they be a lot more efficient if you were doing strategic planning all year long? Wouldn't they already be? And wouldn't, if you were in the 4th or 5th year of work with this customer,
sure.
just
that's
be
what
like,
we
oh, I got
do.
taxes
We do
down.
that. That's
Yeah.
I mean, you're crazy if you're just doing tax returns.
Oh,
You
yeah.
have to be doing the advising part.
And
But
so
that's
what
I'm saying, is
yeah. And that's why I don't understand when accountants say we don't know how to sell it. And my answer back, of course, I'm not sitting in your shoes, so it's a lot easier for me to say this, but this is what I say. Just sell it. Like just
Yeah, but I think you have to, no, the answer is you have to sell it without selling it, because a lot of them think of the word sales and they think of white gloves and ketchup, and then all of a sudden they see blood and they run away. That's what happens to them. So it's almost like you have to tell them you're not selling them anything. You're just solving a problem.
The real thing is accountants are cheap and they think that their clients are cheap. So
no.
No, accountants are not cheap. They're not. You think they're cheap because they're cheap with their office supplies. They're cheap with their office supplies, but they're not cheap when it comes to
like, I'm not going to spend that money. That is a big reason why.
I don't think that's it. I think they're insecure. They're not cheap. They're just insecure in their value.
They don't think they're worth the money that they're charging.
And when I say they, I can say from personal experience. Like, that's how sometimes I would feel. Like, when I was actually doing the work, I didn't see it from the scope of, wow, this has a lot of value. I was seeing it as this client's asking me for something and they know what they want and I know what I have to give them.
It's because we're used to charging by the hour. I'm not worth. Why would someone pay me all this to do this?
I'm worth as much as a prostitute per hour.
I'm worth $150 an hour or whatever. Like, why would they pay for this?
Or a psychiatrist.
We're this time model.
That's at the root of, I don't know how many folks are working for firms where they can't change the pricing model, so it's harder. But if you are working if you're working in a way where you have control over that and can change it, that's the fundamental thing you got to do, is stop this hourly thinking. If you're stuck in a firm, that's the model, and there's not much you can do, then geez, I hope you can change it at the management level. And that was going to be my question back to you, Jason, or either of you, but Jason, how many firms are out there with just antiquated models?
Oh, I think 75% of the market, if not more, are still doing that hour. And
that's just the problem. And so
it's a trend. It's a market trend that'll eventually reverse, right?
It's probably 5% or value-based billing. Be interested to know. I mean,
I want to hear what Mark has to say, because he's looking at it from across the.
I don't know the numbers. I think the other countries are way farther ahead than where we are. They're probably charging more value-based pricing.
Is it interesting to you guys that Deloitte it was Deloitte, right? That restructured and put the auditing with the tax so they could draw a hard line between business services and the other? Didn't that just happen 2 weeks ago? What I read is that their thought process was they needed to draw a line between audit and business services, because business services could include things like forecasting. And so they restructured and put audit with tax so that they could draw this line between the other two. So that says they're setting themselves up to do more, to do these business services, I believe is what they're calling it, and to do more. And I thought that was a great sign. That
change got to happen from the top too. Like if aren't people modeling aren't a lot of that 80% modeling off of the top? So if some of the top ones changed,
they are. That's where most people go. Most people go work at a big four firm and then they go.
And then so that kind of bleeds down. So if they do, it's a step in the right direction. We know it's inevitable, but it's just how much longer till the dominoes start falling faster. And we're just sitting here watch like everything change. It's inevitable. That's also what we named this podcast, the Sons of CPAs, the change agents. It will change, but it's just a matter of when.
How many firms are implementing a business services group? Isn't that how it's?
Oh, it's mostly they're calling it cloud accounting services, but yeah, that's every firm in the country is doing that now.
Whenever you hear anybody say CAS,
basically doing what they were doing before. They were probably doing bookkeeping, but they were doing it on QuickBooks Desktop, and now they're just moving all the cloud and automating it. But I don't think a lot of firms are doing what you're saying to do, which is take to the next step and actually talk to the business owner and provide management services, the CFO controllership side.
But
Most
it's
people
the
are
same
down
thing
for
on what tax preparers should be doing for individuals is planning the future instead of just we do your taxes in case something bad happens, because that's exactly what Kathy said. She was like, if I'm not going to get audited and there's nothing really that complex, but she's looking at from the individual mindset and she's working with businesses.
Well, no, we've just done a very bad job of selling her. We haven't told you why you need a CPA. And
That's probably.
It's 100% true, and that's why because you do it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, Kathy, final question. Okay, we've been asking this to everyone. Give a firm or an accountant one piece of advice that they can take.
Oh, wow. If you don't have it already, develop an addiction to forecasting because it's so fun. I guess you can't develop an addiction to something that you haven't tried. So the advice is actually do it. As much as
do it for your own business.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. I mean, do it for your own business or do it for your favorite client. The one you love to work with every month. The one that
should they do it for free?
Wow, yes. Do it for that client for free. Because the minute now this work isn't for everybody either. And that's the other advice is like decide what you like. If what you really love is just knowing all of the compliance rules and applying those rules, and that's your love, and there are plenty of people who love that, and I think that's awesome, then this probably isn't your work. This work is for people who enjoy making some guesses, which are projections, financial projections, who enjoy giving opinions and blending opinions with the compliance facts and having those conversations. And if you love that stuff, if you like solving puzzles, if you like kind of mystery and figuring out the why of something, if you like problem solving, then there is nothing more fun than understanding a business's rules and combining those rules with projections and creating a model and a forecast and watching that business owner's face just light up when they can see, oh my gosh, that's my profitability in 2 years if I follow this plan, or oh my goodness, that's going to be my future if I don't make some changes. There's nothing better. Like doing the accounting transactions and showing financials for the past. I mean, almost who cares? Who cares? It's over. It doesn't matter. It matters for compliance and for those things, but not for helping a business owner get to their enterprise value. It doesn't matter. It's over. It happened.
I love it. Yeah. Okay, Kathy, tell us where we can find you and LivePlan and on the interwebs. If we're interested in LivePlan, what do we do?
It's so easy, liveplan.com. That's easy to remember. And then there's one more little step from there. There's a solutions menu. And under that, you'll see accountants. And then that's your world. And there's all kinds of learning there. There's just so much to take in. There's a blog if you want to see what our work is about. If you want to even write for our blog, we'd love to do that. There's some case studies to see. And LivePlan offers for accountants a 90-day free trial, 90. That's a lot of time.
That's a lot. That's 3 months.
There you go.
So what about where can we find you if we want to, or do you have a Twitter?
Yeah. Or how do people reach out to you? Yeah.
Yes. I'm so sorry. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter and LinkedIn. My Twitter is Kathy Gregory1.
Gregory.
I found you on LinkedIn. I'm sending you an invite.
This is really fun. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for putting up with us for an hour. God bless you. You deserve a medal.
It's great to meet you.